Hello, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to watch this presentation. In the next few minutes, I will explain the central idea, findings, and relevance of my doctoral research using simple, non-technical language. My research examines financial literacy and financial inclusion in rural India. It begins with a simple but important question. If access to financial services has expanded so widely, why do many households still struggle with savings, borrowing, and debt management? This question motivates the entire thesis. What financial inclusion really means? Financial inclusion is often understood as access to banking, credit, insurance, pensions, and other financial services. Globally and in India, it is viewed as a critical instrument for reducing poverty, promoting inclusive growth, and supporting sustainable development. However, research increasingly recognizes that financial inclusion has three dimensions: the access, usage, and quality of financial services. True inclusion is achieved only when households can use financial services effectively, not merely when those services are available. This is where financial literacy becomes indispensable. Coming to India's financial inclusion paradox, India has made remarkable progress in expanding financial access. Bank account ownership is nearly universal. Institutional credit has expanded. Digital payments have become routine even in rural areas. Yet, a paradox remains. Many rural households continue to save irregularly, depend on money lenders, underutilize insurance and pensions, and struggle with repayment obligations. This reveals a persistent access usage gap. The thesis argues that financial inclusion cannot stop at banking the unbanked. It must evolve towards empowering informed financial decision making. That shift requires rethinking financial literacy. Coming to financial literacy as capability but not awareness alone. Financial literacy is often defined as basic awareness of financial products. This thesis adopts a capability based understanding. Financial literacy here means the ability to make informed and prudent financial decisions in daily life. This includes decisions such as how much to save, which loan option is cheaper over time, how repayment schedules affect income, and how to manage financial risks. Importantly, financial literacy is not binary. Households exhibit different levels of capability, and financial behavior improves meaningfully only after a certain minimum thresholds are crossed. This explains why awareness alone often fails to change outcomes. Coming to why access alone does not change behavior, this thesis shows that access alone fails because households face mistrust of formal institutions, fear of procedures and documentation, comfort with informal arrangements, limited understanding of long term financial costs. Financial behavior is shaped by experience, confidence, and social norms, not by access alone. This leads to a core insight of the research that financial learning is socially embedded. One of the strongest findings of this thesis is that financial learning is fundamentally a social process. In rural India, financial decisions are rarely learned in isolation. They are shaped through participation in self-help groups, joint liability groups, cooperatives, or farmer producer organizations. Such institutions create social capital, trust, shared norms, and repeated interactions. Through regular meetings, collective savings, and group borrowing, These financial concepts are reinforced, confidence builds, and disciplined financial behavior emerges. The thesis shows that group participation consistently raises financial literacy, even after accounting for income, education, caste, and age. In short, financial literacy is learned by doing and by doing together. Coming to the data and research design, the analysis uses data from the NABARD Financial Inclusion Survey, NAFIS, which was conducted during 2021-22, and the survey covers nearly 1 lakh households, rural households across India. The thesis using this data examines what shapes financial literacy, how literacy affects savings, and how influences borrowing behavior. These three are the questions which are analyzed for the thesis. The thesis also distinguishes between agricultural and non-agricultural households, recognizing differences in income stability and livelihood risks. Coming to the key findings across the three analyses which I have done, we summarize the key findings as follows. First, financial literacy is driven primarily by household income, participation in group-based institutions, and household constraints such as size. Purely demographic factors such as age or caste play a limited role once these are considered. The second finding is that financial literacy influences savings in two ways. First, it increases the likelihood that households save, and beyond a capability threshold, the amount they save. Financial literacy does not substitute for income, but it amplifies the effectiveness of the income, especially where cash flows are stable. Third finding, financially literate households make better borrowing decisions. They rely more on formal credit, manage repayment more effectively, and are less dependent on informal lenders, even when asset ownership is limited. This shows that financial capability can partially substitute for collateral. Coming to the policy implications, we need to rethink financial inclusion strategy. These findings lead to several important policy implications. First, financial literacy should not be treated as a one-time awareness intervention. The evidence shows that literacy develops gradually through repeated engagement and practical experience. Second, group-based institutions should form the core delivery platforms for financial literacy. Institutions such as self-help groups, cooperatives, and farm producer organizations leverage social capital, build trust in formal finance, and provide sustained opportunities for learning by doing. Third, financial literacy must be integrated into livelihood programs and financial inclusion initiatives, not delivered as standalone campaigns. Hence, a graduated approach is required where financial products and guidance are aligned with households' evolving levels of capability. Overall, policy must shift from expanding access to strengthening institutions that build financial capability over time. To conclude, this research demonstrates that meaningful financial inclusion depends not just on access, but on how people learn to engage with finance. Financial literacy is a socially embedded capability shaped by institutions, experience, and economic context. Strengthening grassroots institutions is therefore essential for achieving sustainable and equitable financial inclusion in rural India. Before closing, I would like to acknowledge Professor Pankaj Kumar Bag, Chairperson of my Research Advisory Committee, Professor Sony Thomas, Area Member, and Professor Ashok Thomas, Cross Area Member of my Research Advisory Committee. I also acknowledge Professor Rachappa Shetty, Chair of Technical Evaluation Committee. Thank you.